Hello, you're watching Thursday edition of News Mongolia. Today is April 7th. For our top stories, the Mongolian Economic Forum 2022 starts. Prime Minister of Mongolia L.Oyun-Erdene delivers opening remarks at Mongolian Economic Forum 2022. For all the news, stay tuned. The Mongolian Economic Forum is taking place at Government Palace on April 7 to 8. Mongolian Economic Forum is the nation's premier platform to address pressing economic and social issues facing Mongolia and, more importantly, their solutions to accelerate Mongolia's development.
Since 2010, the Mongolia Economic Forum, a politically independent, non-profit, non-governmental organization, has been convening the highest-level representatives from the government, the private sector, civil societies, academia, and international organizations for an annual two-day forum and discussions. This year's Mongolian Economic Forum will focus on ways to speed up the country's development. The government organizes the forum as part of the New Revival Policy. The New Revival Policy is a medium-term program aimed at strengthening the country's economic independence through partnerships between the public and private sectors, and with investors, mitigating the economic impact of the pandemic, eradicating impediments to development, and paving the way for the implementation of Vision 2050 long-term development policy. We remind you that preliminary sessions on energy recovery, state productivity, industry, urban and rural recovery, border checkpoints, and green growth recovery were organized by the related state agencies prior to MEF between 21st and 29th of March.
The reason we have decided to name the forum the New Revival Policy is that the government of Mongolia has defined its development plan for the upcoming decades known as Vision 2050. The first 10-year plan has been defined. Notably, we have concluded that in order to achieve the 2050 goals, we must focus on the 6 main pillars of the economy. Those include ports, energy, industry recovery, green development, state productivity recovery, and urban and rural recovery. As Mongolia is a landlocked country, we face many restrictions. 90% of exports are dependent on 3 ports, while 90% of imports are dependent on just 2 ports. It is clear that Mongolia does not have a well-developed transport and logistics sector. Even though Mongolia is one of the smallest population densities in the world, currently, about 50% of our population is residing in just 0.3% of our territory, and that creates a serious imbalance between urban and rural areas. Mongolia produces about 40 trillion tukrik worth of goods annually. However, we fail to spend at least 20% of that on investments, and we can conclude that we concentrated much more on budget expenditures rather than investments. Therefore, as part of the New Revival Policy, we shall concentrate on how we can double or even triple the local economy. The government is not able to produce and solve everything. We should only solve constraining factors. The rest is up to entrepreneurs, local private businesses, investors, and citizens. With the successful implementation of the New Revival Policy, we expect that the current $4,500 GDP per person could be increased to $12,000 GDP per person.
The first day of the forum was opened by the Prime Minister of Mongolia L.Oyun-Erdene, and later the President of Mongolia L.Oyun-Erdene delivered his opening remarks.
The Mongolian Economic Forum is being organized at this important moment, where after almost 3 years of hiatus caused by the pandemic, the global community is paying great significance to economic revival and recovery. During last autumn's consultative meeting between private and public entities themed Economic Recovery during the times of the pandemic, organized under the patronage of the President of Mongolia, Hurulsukh, we learned from and listened to proposals from citizens and private entities, and related proposals and advisory documents were passed to Parliament and the government of Mongolia. This year's Mongolian Economic Forum will mainly focus on reviving the economy and overcoming new challenges that the local economy faces. The main goal of today's forum is to exchange views between the state and private entities and finding solutions to emerging issues. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the world economy has shrunken by 3.5%, which was the biggest hit to the world economy since World War II, and inflation hit its peak since the 2008 global economic crisis. Even though the Mongolian economy has faced some challenges due to the COVID-19 pandemic, thanks to the timely measures taken by the government, some economic growth and increase in the Mongolian economy can be observed.
In addition, Marcela Estavao, Global Director of Macroeconomics, Trade and Investment at the World Bank, delivered a keynote speech. The first day of the forum continued with sessions on international relations, food supply, and the recovery of the transport and energy sectors.
Recent drastic changes in international relations, increasing disputes and misunderstandings between nations, and an intensifying competition between the great powers are affecting small and vulnerable economies like Mongolia. Today at the Mongolia Economic Forum, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Batsitsik Batmuch, and the Vice Chairman of Parliament, Ayursehan Tumurbatar, and other officials gave talks about the current state of international relations. Details from MNB World reporter Anar Kambatar.
The main objectives of the open discussion on the current state of international relations of the Mongolian Economic Forum were to ensure independence and sovereignty of Mongolia in the midst of all the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as serious events in international relations, strengthening its position in the international community, implementing a coherent foreign policy, and frankly discuss issues of foreign economic cooperation. Mongolia has one of the most successful coronavirus vaccinations and COVID-19 management strategies in the world. However, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Batsitsik, emphasized that the situation in Ukraine is creating unpredictable difficulties and affects not only Mongolia but all countries in the world.
Mongolia adheres to the one-window foreign policy, according to the responsibilities and directions given by the members of the National Security Council. Only the Ministry of Foreign Affairs should express Mongolia's position. This work is being done and recommendations are being made to all ministries, agencies, local governments, government officials, and staff.
Minister Batsitsik said that Mongolia pursues a peaceful foreign policy based on the constitution and the foreign policy concept and adheres to this principle. She noted that Mongolia has no problem in its foreign relations, being a country that has established diplomatic relations with 193 countries and is continually developing friendly cooperation. In the last 2 years, the global economy has been hit hard by the pandemic, and inflation has risen sharply due to the shortages. The international crisis caused by the problems between Russia and Ukraine at a time when the banking and capital service sectors were hit by the economic crisis has introduced further obstacles to economic development. In addition, Bolt, a consultant at the Institute for Strategy and Research under the National Security Council, said that the construction of an oil refinery with assistance from India should be intensified. This is important to ensure Mongolia's national security. Due to global warming and climate change, the European Union is classifying nuclear energy as renewable energy. Therefore, consultant Bolt expressed that it is right to invest in uranium mining in South Java and focus on building a small nuclear power plant. This will be a step towards ensuring energy security.
Today's forum was divided into 3 sections and took place in the main hall, the A and B halls. In the main hall, at the plenary session, macroeconomic challenges and opportunities were discussed. In this session, representatives of governmental organizations and the private sector attended the discussions. They discussed a new revival policy of Mongolia, while in the A hall, the plenary session was on the current state of international relations.
The government of Mongolia has started economic recovery plan for the next few years. And the main point of this is to handle the bottlenecks which have been stopping the development of the country. So for us, the important part is government productivity. As you know, we have digitalized over 650 government services in Mongolia. And as much as we digitalize the government services, we have to re-engineer the government process. Because many people, especially in the front desk, do not have their jobs anymore because we replace their jobs with digital services. So what we need to do is that we need to re-engineer the government, meaning that we have to reskill the existing employees.
Event comes to a very good time because we just coming out of a pandemic. Now we are facing the impact of a war, and I think finding solutions which are really very much private sector focused and support the government policy, specifically the new recovery policy, will be important. I think here to get the feedback from the audience, to get the feedback from the expert, will help to shape the policy even further. As EBRD here in the country, we are very much focusing on private sector, but also we are supporting the government in specific areas like transmission lines, renewable energy, green recovery, green transition. And we just started a new project with the Ministry of Economic Development in regard to identifying a portfolio of green investment projects to attract foreign direct investments into the country.
We have challenges at both borders in China and Russia by road transport, and we are having these challenges recently. But through our good negotiation, also having a good arrangement into our security, we have increased the transport, road transport through our south border, Ilyang and Zamud. So we have this, currently we have this special area which we are carrying our cargo through containers. But at the moment the number of containers entering to the border is not enough, so that's why government is negotiating with China to expand the capacity of this place so that we can import more cargo through container in south border. In north border, which is Altenbolag, during the pandemic back in 2021, it was a lockdown for a couple of months, and we had very tough time. And then through our negotiation with the Russian side, we have successfully negotiated importing our cargo by road transport, exchanging the trailers, and so it has been successful. And now currently this situation is fine, but obviously after the COVID now this Russian and Ukraine situation is now getting worse, so we also worried that it will affect to our import cargo through the north border.
In the B Hall, the plenary session focused on the recovery of the ports as well as the transportation and logistics crisis. There are severe problems in these sectors. People in attendance had many questions for the panelists.
Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Here comes the weather forecast for the world's major cities. This was Thursday edition of News Mongolia. Thanks for watching.